I want to always ask how many people have been coming to our programming, but I'm kind of blinded by the lights right now, so if you put your arms up, I won't actually see. But how many people have come to our program? See, give yourselves a hand, too. Thank you. And as I said, this program is a Q&A with Jim Butcher. Welcome, Jim. Thank you for coming.
Parkour, yes. My fans are hooligans, settle down.
Yeah, they get too excited. Now what we're going to do is we have two people with mics that will be where you go to ask your questions, because this is mostly for you. So if you will, let's see, we have one person standing up over here, not in the center aisle, but the two side aisles. Do everybody see where the mics are? I have a couple of questions for Jim that while I am asking and he is answering, that gives you the opportunity to go line up if you would like to ask questions, okay? Thank you. My first question for you is there something that happened in an earlier book in the series that you kind of wish now that you hadn't done? Or something, you know, something that you kind of set things in place?
No. No, I think all things considered, I feel like I'd be a little bit ungrateful at this point if I said, the early series was just so messed up. Because it seems to have worked out.
Right, oh yeah, I think so.
So the only thing I regret is that people have to start reading the series with the book that I knew the least about writing a good book when I wrote. Because, I mean, because it's okay, you won't hurt my feelings by acknowledging that there was a learning curve there going on in the early series. And, I mean, you know, I wrote that when I was 26 and knew very little about the actual art of writing a good story. And now it's, you know, it's a much different process for me now. So.
Okay. Is there a character from either from another book series or from maybe a movie or television show that you feel as though Harry would really enjoy hanging out with?
The question is, would they enjoy hanging out with him? Because he's just are you kidding? I wouldn't want to hang out with Harry Dresden. I mean, you know, we just have to have, John Taylor could do it. John Taylor could definitely do it. Yeah. They could compare coats. Yeah, I mean, Harry's he's got that havoc radius around him that I would want to be in, you know, so, I mean, I would, if I was at the table with him, I'd constantly be going, don't take it personal, man.
Yeah, I remember last year you said something about inviting him to a barbecue, and then or somebody did on a panel, and then you said, I don't think we'd want to invite Harry to a barbecue, so probably a good idea.
Well, I mean, you get along with him fine. He'd be a good guy to have there. You could play Cards Against Humanity with him or something.
There you go. Do we have some people lined up for their questions? Okay, we'll take one. We can't see anything because we're kind of blinded by the light, as I said, so I will go to Sheila first, please. Oh, there we go. Told you.
Yeah, Sheila's over here.
Hi, my question is sort of nitpicky, so I apologize. But in Cold Days, when Molly becomes the part of the Fae, I was wondering why Dresden isn't, because he had been around the Fairy Queens and he was trained as the knight, and in the earlier books, a knight becomes the lady. So is it just because he's a guy, or is
because he's a boy? Of course not. You're a boy. You know,
I was hoping there would be some deeper meaning.
No, just he has a penis. So. I wish it was complicated and cool, and I could tell you that, but you know, I'm not very complicated.
Hi Jim, thank you so much for writing this series. It's actually improved my own writing to read the way you do scene and sequel in your books, and it's the writing phrase for when you have a thing happen and then everything explodes after. So could you kind of go into how you structured that? Is that something that just came out naturally, or is that a process that you follow? Like, oh, things are getting boring, I'm going to drop a house on somebody.
When you're writing the book, one of the things you have to plan for is you've got to think of the book like a roller coaster. And the first 2/3 of the book are the ride up the hill where it's going ka-chunk, 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 ka-chunk. And you've got to do some things to keep it interesting. You know, like on the roller coasters where you got to have the sign that says, you know, this roller coaster is, you know, dangerous and still under construction and stuff like that to, you know, to keep you entertained all the way up the hill. But then you get to that, when you hit that big middle point, there's usually a big flashy middle point in the books. And then after that, everything kind of goes crazy. And that's the point where you get to where you start down the hill, and then the rest of the roller coaster is a lot faster. I mean, it really, when you're on a roller coaster, it takes about half the time of the ride going up the hill. But that's not the part you remember. The part you remember is the exciting swirly bit after. So that's what really writing a story is about. Is you've got to set it up going up the hill, and then you've got to have the exciting swirly bit after. It's like the other metaphor I use. It's like setting up dominoes, and it takes forever to set them up. And then it seems like it goes really, really fast when you finally knock them over and get to see the chain of events that you've established. The important thing is just as you're writing the story, you've got to be thinking about the swirly bit at the end. So you've got to have in mind, this is how I want the drama to play out. This is how I want the cool action scene to happen. This is how I want, you know, the lightsaber to come into the story. So that you get it set up. But it's holy. It's a right saber.
Trademark.
Yeah. Oh God, are you kidding? I would never trademark that. That's just asking for so much karma to come down. But
hi. You recently stated that you had originally planned on writing Proven Guilty before Deadbeat. I was wondering, what do you think you would have had Molly doing during Deadbeat if that had happened?
Molly would have been doing basically what Ramirez was doing. She would have been riding. It would have been her on the back of the dinosaur and so on, getting into trouble. It would have been. The kind of assistant she lended would have looked a lot different and a lot black magic-ier. But that would have basically been her job if we'd done it that way. But as it was, my editor called me and said, what's the next story going to be? Oh, this is going to be all about Molly, and you know, she's going to be getting into this, and Harry's going to be picking her up as an apprentice, and she's like, you know, Jim, you might want to think, for this next book, you might want to make your story a bit bigger, a bit broader, a bit more solid. I'm like, are you saying I'm going to hardback? She says, I didn't say that. But maybe you should think about it just in case it happens. And I'm like, oh, okay, so T-Rex.
We have another question for you over here, John.
Someone just passed me an anonymous note, so that always ends well. We've heard that Codex Alera has been optioned for a film. Is that true?
Has it? That would be awesome.
Anonymous note. I don't know.
I guess I'll check. I hadn't heard that though. It would be really awesome if it was, but I mean, maybe it happened when I wasn't looking. I'm like the worst businessman ever. Mostly, I just want to go back to my couch and write my books, okay? And that's kind of what drives most of my decisions as far as business goes. So I'm not a very good businessman. I've been terribly lucky.
Hello, Jim.
Hello.
First of all, I want to apologize if I hit you too hard in the face at a laugh event. I tend to get carried away. Second, books like Changes in Cold Days had such an impactful meaning on the Harry Dresden universe. They were such big events, Chichen Itza, Molly becoming one of the Fae. Books like, unfortunately, Skin Game seem to be a bit more ambiguous. So I'm wondering if you talked about the book itself being a roller coaster, is the entire extended kind of continuity a roller coaster as well? Do you plan for that as well?
Uh-huh. Yeah, that was... And the big flashy middle bit was that started with changes. But yeah, we got to the end of changes and my editor read it and she panicked. And she wrote me and you know, she emailed me. She's like, oh my God, you killed him? You killed him? Like that. Like she had to say everything twice. And I got to write back, yeah, now we can do the fun stuff. So yeah, and the believe me, there was plenty of impact in Skin Game that just isn't quite as obvious, but wait for it. Yeah, so.
Hi there. I had a question about how you built your cosmology around the outsiders being extraplanar, kind of extra-dimensional beings. I've noticed that the entirety of the Dresden universe seems very Earth-centric, and I was wondering if you've given any thought to extraterrestrials, as in beings from another planet, and how they would fit into the Dresden universe, and if you could elaborate on that at all, if you've given it any thought.
Well, it also seems very wizard-centric. Because the main character is a wizard on Earth. As far as extraterrestrials goes, a lot of them are fairies having fun. Because, you know, elves and little green men, you know, was kind of the same thing. But they could show up here. It would be a huge pain in the ass for aliens because, I mean, if you think wizards disrupt, you know, primitive human technology, you should see what happens to alien stuff. So, you know, basically the aliens are like, man, this place sucks. There's all these biological anomalies. Don't even get in orbit around that place, man. It's dangerous. You know, I mean, you talk about crashed alien ships, wizards. You know, there's actually, okay, we'll do that later, but. We'll actually get to do some space stuff later. As far as the extra-dimensional stuff goes, though, I mean, there's tons of extra-dimensional stuff. It just happens that some of them are a little bit more extra-dimensional, or in this case, non-dimensional, because they're, you know, the established, you know, canon of the Dresden Files is that this universe has been created, and there are things that come in from outside of creation and don't like creation and want it gone. Because it's so disruptive and sucks, you know, from their point of view. But that's a better story than writing the one from the outsider perspective, because that's just dull. You know, we've got to have the one from home, from the human perspective. I think writing from an alien perspective would be odd. Although my personal theory is that humans are nowhere near as unique and special as we like to think we are. Generally speaking, I think humanity is a terribly, terribly arrogant species. So, you know, it would be great to find out that, you know, people just look at us and go, oh, yeah, you're just intergalactics with bumps on your head, whatever. You know, I mean, if we're just you know, kind of the regular random Star Trek alien that's got a little, you know, we have eyebrows, and you know, that's what makes you different. Yeah, look at you, human, showing off your eyebrows.
Hi, my name is Joelle. I'm from Cleveland, and like everybody here, big super fan, so thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you for your money.
You're welcome. I probably put a wing on your house.
I'd like to help raise my child and get him to school and all kinds of things, okay?
Yes, my last name is Rises, so the Rises wing of your house, that's mine. So, my question for you, and I want to say first off that I raised my hand to volunteer if you and your publisher would ever want to do this, but I'd love to see a compendium of all the movie lines that you quote in the books, where they came from.
Oh gosh.
I
don't know if I could do that. I'm pretty sure you could go to like TV Tropes or something and find something very close, because they follow that stuff closely. When I need to look stuff up, I go to the Fan Wiki and TV Tropes and start looking there.
Well, I love that you managed, I mean, God bless Robin Williams, but you actually managed to sneak an Aladdin, you know, quote in there, the genie quote in your last book, and to me those are the best hidden gems when I read it, and I go, oh, I know what that is. I'm like, so
yeah.
So I think
Yeah, you got that Captain America and Avengers feeling, you know. I get it. I got that reference. Oh, welcome. Hi.
Hi, my name is Patrick, but a lot of my friends know me by PJ. My question is about names and the power they hold over people. You made it very important to note that not to nickname the angel. What if someone were to know someone's name but not their nickname? How much power would they hold over them?
Oh, the name is the ultimate thing. Nickname is that's something you pick up that's a safer name to use, and that's why that's why it got developed as far as anthropology goes, is because you needed a safe name. That people could just use and that would be friendly, and then that turned into your nickname. In a lot of cultures, you had a secret name that you didn't tell anybody, except the people who were very, very close in your life, or maybe you didn't even tell them. So I mean that was that was the whole name concept, and the true name concept is very, very old and very deeply ingrained in human cultures around the world. But yeah, I mean, if they had your true name, they got you. They don't need your nickname at that point. Once they've got your email address, password, and social security number, they don't really need to know your handle on Battlefield 4. To just completely wreck your life. Although they might have a hard time wrecking your Battlefield 4 life.
Hey, so in Skin Game, you had a Greek god kind of come into play for the big Dresden universe, when you normally do like Norse and Fan stuff. My question would be, are we going to see any more of the big Greek gods get in the mix?
Yes.
You
got to meet the reasonable one first.
Do any certain fairy queens owe any certain wifely duties to the reasonable guy?
Do they owe anything to them?
Sure. Yeah, that's actually a good one.
I mean, no. The whole point of Skin Game is that Mab is clearing her books. She's clearing all the red out of her ledger, as it were. And I mean that was why she was doing what she was doing. But you can bet that she took care of the big debts to bigger players first, and then worked her way down to Nicodemus. So certainly.
Hi, I was wondering how you would defeat your evil doppelganger, Butch Jimmer.
A redhead. Yeah, they would have to involve that. Easily distractible. Also, how do you know I'm not the evil doppelganger? You don't.
Hey, Mr. Butcher. I'm Chris. I love your work. I was at another panel recently, and one of the questions that got fielded was what tabletop game needs a video game adaptation? And actually, one that came up was the Dresden Files. And I was wondering if you had any plans for that, or if you would be open to that happening in the future.
What tabletop game?
Video game.
Video game. Yeah, that would be kind of cool. I would kind of want it to be some kind of a Fable-esque story-based game where you could just wreck the universe in all kinds of cool ways. I mean, that would be awesome. One of those games that you played for 12 hours and then realized that a choice you made at the very back at the beginning had inevitably led Cthulhu to eating you. Although I'd almost rather see a Codex Alera game because the special effects would be cooler. You could be able to. We could totally do like an MMORPG for that. So. I'm not going to do that. That's crazy. I'd have to learn programming. I wouldn't be able to write. And, you know, there'd have to be a company and business and organization and probably a calendar. No, that's not going to happen. I can barely keep track of what day it is already, so. Really? Yeah, I guess it is, isn't it? Okay.
So first I want to say that I'm a huge fan.
Thank you.
And I wanted to ask 1.25 questions. First, I wanted to ask if you remembered my brother. He had a Pop-Tart costume that you signed.
Okay. I get, there's a few costumes, so.
That was the quarter question. Here's the big question. If Harry Dresden came to Dragon Con, where would he go and what would he do?
The Urban Fantasy track, of course.
So you got to understand that my experience of Dragon Con has always been the professional experience of Dragon Con. So, I mean, I've always got places and appointments that I have to be at, and there's, you know, there's like business lunches and grabbing a quick bite with friends, you know, between frankly running to more things, which might be like the fan experience of Dragon Con. I don't know. I don't know. Let's see, Harry Dresden, well, first place, he could just blend in as far as the cosplay went, so that'd be fun. That would make him feel good. He would probably have to avoid any of he'd have to avoid like any panels that had like electronics and stuff in them, because otherwise it'd just be feedback the whole time. Yeah, you basically like hang around and look at costumes and stuff like that. And if he could find some LARPing where he could hit somebody with foam weapons, he might do that. But on the other hand, he'd also have to be nervous because he'd have to be wondering, you know, okay, so, you know, which of these people is actually a vampire? So he'd have to walk through the whole place twitching the entire time. You know, security would be all, you know, with, you know, looking at him askance and so on, because, you know, they notice guys like that. So I don't know, really. I'm pretty sure there'd be an evil wizard at some point, and a fight would break out, and there'd be panic, and that would be kind of cool, actually. But then, you know, I mean, that would blow out all the electronics in the whole area, and then that would be the year that Dragon Con had a blackout, and, you know, the next year there'd be all these blackout babies. Let's face it, I'm a nerd, I know you.
My name is Aaron, and I have been a fan of yours since the bookstore Gorillas, and I would like to say thank you for keeping it going this long. My biggest question is, pain is a very important part of not only Harry's life, but of the entire universe. And you write it in a way that I find extraordinarily relatable. How do you do that, and how much of that is based on your personal experiences? And kind of a secondary question, are we ever going to get to hear Mouse talk again?
I don't know. Mouse is kind of the strong silent type. You know, to answer the easier question first. As far as writing about pain goes, for a long time, since I was about 9 years old, I've been dealing with migraines. To a degree where at one point I was, about 3 days in 10, I was not functional because I had a migraine that kept me from, you know, opening my eyes. You know, I couldn't have been up here on stage in front of these lights or anything like that on a day like that. So for a real long time, you know, learning to deal with that and learning how to handle it and learning how to, you know, to get enough done to get through the day anyway, was just part of life. So you have to learn to deal. Now, I've traded that because I changed up the way I ate a whole bunch, and now I'm like weightlifting every day. Well, like 6 days a week. Because you got to have a rest day. I mean, even God did that. Because he was totally lifting the other 6 days. I developed my weightlifter voice while we're lifting. No one takes you seriously without a weightlifter voice. And so now I have a different kind of pain to deal with, because when you're lifting that much, you cause injuries and you either stop lifting, which is bad for me, or you continue and you learn how to deal with how much it hurts. And eventually you get to the point where it's like, people will ask, "Are you in pain right now?" And I'll have to stop and think about it. Yeah, I kind of am. Yeah, I did something to my leg the other night, and my shoulder's always kind of twitchy, and yeah, it hurts. And that's just sort of something you kind of learn to deal with as you go along. And fortunately, I had the experience of learning how to deal with it despite blinding head pain and nausea. This is much, much easier than doing the migraine thing, let me tell you. So I've had like 6 migraines this entire year. It's been and lately it's like party, because I'm taking the physical exercise thing real seriously now. But anyway, yeah, parkour. I'm not doing parkour, man. That's just broken legs waiting to happen. Because I see those guys doing like those 20 and 25 foot drops and they fall into a roll and come up running. It's like, oh, that's so awesome. I could totally do that. No, I couldn't. That would be horrible.
So if you could ask, this is a 2-part question. If you could ask Harry one thing, what would it be?
Okay, if I could ask Harry one thing, what would it be? I don't know. It would be something inane. Where's the nearest Burger King? Because he'd know. I don't really have to ask him anything. I get to write all about him, unfortunately. I guess I could look at him and go, "Ma'am, seriously? That was your best move?"
And my second part is, if Harry could ask you one question, what would it be?
Oh, he'd probably go, "Mab, seriously? That was your best move?"
Hi, Jim. Hey. We saw in Cold Days where Harry summoned Mother Winter using other names. And I was kind of wondering, at the end of the Skin Game, the items that are received, have they been other things in mythology and history?
I'm not gonna tell you. Yeah, very observant. Next question.
So, 2 books ago, you mentioned, you start this idea of Harry being a parent, right? And then halfway on the journey to the latest book, I became a one. And in Skin Game, I kind of really resonated a lot with the ideas of him discovering, the feelings he had as a parent. How do you plan on moving on that? Because he lives a really dangerous life. And, of course, that's been a big theme is, the danger of him having a child and the responsibility of the child. But it's really interesting because I wasn't expecting you to embrace that. I was really, honestly, thinking that there was going to be some Deus Ex Machina at the end. I was like, no, he's not going to erase her. But as far as I've gotten, it seems like you're really planning to move on this. And how do you, because, I have a lot of faith in you, but dang, dude.
A funny thing about kids, they don't always ask you if it's convenient for them to be in your lives or not. Occasionally they will just show up anyway. And even when you plan for the kid and the kid shows up, you weren't ready. And if you're in here and you're a parent, you know that's true. Children are really, I think, they are more than anything else what forces you as a human being to level up. Because you've got this tiny irrational person and they're not leveling up and someone needs to. So it's got to be you. And I think as when you become a parent, I think that's something that you've got this person who's depending on you, and you've got to become somebody who's more patient and more careful, and who has more foresight and who has more compassion. And I think it's one of those things that is really that makes people better when nothing else can. As far as Harry having it, it's like, well, now you get a whole new dimension of stuff added on, and you'll get to see a little bit more how that's going to be handled in the next book. Next book will take place pretty much not too long after the end of this previous one. Normally there's more or less a year in between them, because there's more or less a year in between them, and it's just simpler for me. But this one will be, I think there's only about 3 months have gone by. We'll start it in the middle of the next summer, where, Harry's living with his daughter and trying to be a dad while all this stuff goes down. So, on the other hand, Maggie does have this big dog, and if you want to mess with Maggie, you got to get through the big dog, which is sort of a great reason for really a great role for Mouse, because Mouse was originally designed to be. I wanted Harry's apartment to be a little bit more secure than it was going to be anyway, without kind of turning it into the super bat cave. And so that was sort of the original purpose of developing Mouse the way I did. That purpose is, to a degree, has been served. And yet I don't want Mouse to just be the constant go forth and slay things, because that's like having Superman on your team. And he causes more problems than he solves, and from the storytelling point of view. Mouse is, I think Mouse has found a really good role in being the protector of Maggie. Plus, he gets to go to school. He probably knows history better than Maggie does at this point. Knows how to read better than she does. And I can see him sitting there with flashcards. And when she gets it right, he wags his tail and goes to the next one. Like that. So.
Hi, Jim.
Hey.
I came all the way from Ontario, Canada to see you, so love from Canada. Just finished Cold Days. I have to say, Karen and Harry, finally. My question is, will you... sorry.
Don't spoil it.
Sorry. Will evil Harry ever truly manifest, and will Harry have a cross-border adventure sometime soon?
Okay, I didn't understand you. Say that again a little bit further from the mic.
Oh, sorry. Will evil Harry ever truly manifest, and will Harry ever come across the border?
Will evil Harry ever truly manifest? We'll get to see that, yeah. The next book after this one is called Mirror, Mirror, and there's just going to be eye patches and goatees and everything. The idea is I want to change one choice and make a universe that's different by one choice and see what happens, and that will be a great deal of fun for me. Probably not for Dresden though. But he's no fun. He's such a wet blanket. He's always complaining.
We do have one request though, and that is that if Harry does come to DragonCon, please don't let it be evil Harry.
Oh.
Just saying, okay.
Oh, I don't know. Evil Harry's like debonair, man. He'd do well in front of
that's
true. Regular Harry would just be, petrified of being in front of people. So, I'm sorry. There was a second part to that question.
Will Harry ever cross the border? Like, have an adventure in the Canadian wilderness, because there's all kinds of stuff.
You have an adventure that happens elsewhere other than the United States? Probably. It probably won't happen until the big trilogy, and that will be, the big trilogy at the end, you know about that, right? Okay, the end is going to be the big apocalyptic trilogy, and there's going to be all sorts of things happening, and we're going to wind up all over the place. Because I've been planning for that for a while, so, I'm saving the epic stuff for the end. And that's not for a while. That's, we've got... let's see, the next book will be 16, is that right? So we still got 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, and then the big trilogy. So, and those will be like 2 books long, probably. Big old doorstop, hit somebody over the head with it books. But it will require some patience on your part, because the stories you make a story twice as long, it doesn't get twice as hard, it gets like 7 or 8 times as hard to make it good. So, the longer the story is, the more work has to go in ahead of time, and the more work has to go in making it readable. The glowing-eyed Bob over here is distracting the hell out of me. Could you please hold that up for everybody else, and you could distract them with it? Okay, there we go. Thank you. I had to say something. Go ahead, go.
I kind of want to revisit a question that happened over here earlier, which is that I love that Harry's constantly dropping movie lines and stuff like that. But my big question is, where does he learn them? Because every time he gets near electronics, they blow out. Is he just like grinding?
No, he goes for the movies. He goes to the drive-in theater in Aurora, Illinois. It's about 25 minutes outside of Chicago, and he can drive down there and just park his car and sit on it and listen to the ambient sound of the music, even though the speakers like immediately around him don't work. All the rest of the ones in the park do, and he can watch the movie. For TV, there's an electronics store across from a park that he sits down across the street and reads the subtitles. He doesn't have as much time to do that as he used to, but occasionally he will still find a show once in a while that he has to go watch. So.
Hi, I'm a huge fan. I've read all of your books with my family. Probably should have made them buy their own copies.
Yes, you should.
I have a laws of magic question. Generally speaking, the rule is it's only a violation of the law if you are using mortal magic to do it. A few years back, I was working on a research project that was looking for mirror universes using neutrons. And I was sitting there thinking to myself, okay, if this was the Dresdenverse, would I be asking for a warden visit for seeking knowledge or power for beyond the outer gates?
Oh, no, not unless you were actively trying to, Cthulhu Fatagan. If you're not actually trying to bring something in, you probably don't have much to worry about from the White Council. They actually gave me a phone call once a few years ago. I got a phone call from the actual White Council, so it was claimed. And they did not appreciate me dispensing their secrets. But yeah, they're only concerned with wizards, and they pretty much know who they all are. Mortals doing stuff with technology mostly scares them. Because if you think your folks are bad with cell phones, with the general online phobia, you should see wizards because think of somebody how different the world was for somebody that was born in the 30s or the 40s, much less the 1730s or 40s. They really don't they don't deal well with that sort of thing. But yeah, you should be safe, I would think, because science.
Hi, Jim. Thank you for the books. Mean a lot to us. But my question is, have any of your LARPing experiences made their way into your books?
Oh, probably. Inevitably. I don't know what it's like to wait in ambush for an enemy force and to jump out and get them. But I do know what it's like to wait in ambush for an enemy group of PCs and jump out and get them. That's a little thing. That's not like a real life experience, but it's something that I can draw upon and build on. A little bit in terms of being able to write the chaos of combat, not of real combat, because I don't do combat that has actual pain and actual blood. Just pretend pain and pretend blood. But I can sort of draw on that a little bit in my own experiences because being in a LARP combat, the first few times you're in it, you're like, oh my God, what just happened? And you've got no idea or how long you were there or what happened or why you're so exhausted. But then as you get used to it, get used to the game, it's like, oh, I can totally see everything that's happening on this fight and I can understand what's going on. And that sort of lets you, that experience for me sort of let me be able to translate that into writing and to be able to write something clearly. Being able to understand that chain of consequence of cause and effect. This is what's happening in the LARP, and in an actual combat, that's something very clear that you have to understand, and whoever understands it better usually tends to win. So being able to put it together for writing, that was helpful, I think. Writing my big, especially like writing big battle scenes and stuff like that. It was helpful for me. But other than that. being able to, kind of come up with the one-liners and stuff. The writing has helped the LARPing, I'll tell you that. Because, it's like, now I can kick down the door of a place while, kick down the door of a building that's being held and drop a one-liner and sword fight somebody and like that. So, I'm not nearly as clever as I think I am. Because I'm only clever in retrospect. Like, I think about it later and I think to myself, oh, if only I'd said that, it would have been so clever. That would have sounded so cool. Except when you're a writer, then you just go back in and write that, and then you sound, then you front load your cool, and then you look awesome. But in real life, no, not so much. I actually have kicked open a door and said, and I'm all out of bubble gum, and started hitting somebody. At least the people there appreciated it,
So one of your April Fool's jokes involved Dresden on stage. I'm wondering if perhaps maybe we'll ever get Dresden on stage in the books.
No. Although I felt really bad because it turned out there was a Redditor who hadn't realized that was an April Fool's joke because he'd read it a couple days late. And they dropped just enough stuff into it to make him think, oh, they're actually doing that. And so he got tickets to New York. I'm like, oh, God, that's so funny. I don't want to laugh. But he's just going to do the visit to New York. And I'm like, hey, drop me your email. I'll let you see the next book a little bit early. Because anybody with that much enthusiasm for the Dresden Files needs to see the next book a little bit early. But yeah, I don't really actually have a whole lot to do with that. That's mainly Priscilla. I don't know if you folks know Priscilla online. She helps run the website. She's here occasionally, and she's an absolutely wonderful person. But Priscilla is she only looks sweet because she loves those April Fool's things. You would think she was like this well-ordered Hermione, but she's actually plotting in the background, this evil stuff. One day she will destroy us all. Get used to it,
Hi, my question is regarding the swords, and I apologize in advance to anyone who has not read Skin Game.
Yeah, if you haven't read Skin Game, just do this.
Now that Butters has one of the swords, are we going to find out more about the legacy of the holders of the swords, where you had mentioned that Michael was descended from Charlemagne?
Yeah. Probably not so much, really. Butters is Jewish. They had some kings back there, here and there. This is just one of them. He's the next holder of the sword. Although Butters is not going to be one of the overnight guys. Most of the holders of the sword, historically speaking, they used it for one thing and then they were done. But Butters is going career, however long that may be. He's a little guy, man. He is not prepared for that world. Although, I really do kind of want the training montage of, to the Rocky music. We'll just do Eye of the Tiger. That'll work. Butters doing the training montage, and then at the very end of it, having coming in after a hard day and coming into his kitchen and looking around, and then, nobody's watching. Cut the bread with it. Because come on, if you had a lightsaber, you would be finding things to do with it. We all would.
Hello, my name's Michael. I'm from Charlotte. I'm actually a new reader into the series. It's actually pretty good so far. I know. It's a lot of spoilers going around, but it's well worth it. The work you've done so far has been phenomenal. But my question for you, after reading the first book into the series, what one thing could you tell me about Harry Dresden's character?
What one thing I can tell you about his character?
Yeah, just anything.
We have the same food at Burger King. Carrie and I had the same meal at Burger King. You get three hamburgers and a Coke and fries. I skip the Coke and fries a lot these days. I only get those on special occasions, but yeah, we go to get the same thing. And the reason I eat at Burger King is once upon a time, I used to work at a summer camp where I was a wrangler. And so we would round up horses in the morning and take campers on rides all afternoon and then take care of the horses all evening. And that's work. When you're doing that with 30 horses, that's work. So we would do that all week, and then at the end of the week, we would take our $10 that we got paid, and that was nothing even then. I mean, it's not like those were, oh, the dollars were so large back then. No. On Saturday, we would skip breakfast and skip lunch and get everything taken care of, and me and my buddy Wes would leave, and it was my first friend who had a car. I was 15 and he was 16, and we would leave the camp and drive into town to the comic book store and buy all the comics. And between the two of us, we could get every comic that Marvel had put out that week. And then we would go from there over to Burger King. And then we would eat Burger King. And so, to me, Burger King tastes like creativity and friends and freedom. And so I still eat at Burger King because it is good for my soul. I don't eat there because it's good for my body, but it is good for my soul.
Hi there, my name's Kyle. I'm dressed up as Dresden today.
I can sort of see that. You're a little blurry to me, but I can sort of see that.
Yeah, that's my secret. But my question was, Dresden throughout the series has expressed his dislike for being the Winter Knight. Is there any possibility later on in the series of him getting a chance not to be the Winter Knight, or is that a permanent thing?
Oh, of him not being the Winter Knight? Yeah. Like of him getting out of it some other way other than feet first?
Yeah.
Like, I'm going to tell you that. Teasing you guys, I really do. It's one of the things that I just feed upon. Oh, I'm not the evil Jim. I'm the good one. And that's saying something there. That pretty much tells you something about me right there.
How long have you had the overall plan for the Dresden Files? And if you had to write a short story involving the Blue Beetle, what would happen in it?
The overall plan for the Dresden Files, that happened, I've had that since after I wrote Chapter 2 of Stormfront, because my writing teacher, I turned the first 2 chapters in, and my writing teacher read them, and she said, well, this is it, you've done it. And that was a response that I had never gotten before from her, because I had gotten, responses from her had included things like rolling up the chapter and leaning across the table and hitting me on the head with it. She was not a gentle or kindly writing teacher. She was a pro. And so, when I wrote the first couple, she said, you done it. And I'm like, I did. And she's like, yep, this will sell. I don't know if it'll be the first thing you sell, but this will sell. You need to plan out the rest of it. And she just meant the book.
So you're telling us it was all a misunderstanding? Yeah.
So I rolled into the next week and said, okay, I've got the rest of it planned out. It's for 20 novels, and then a 3-book trilogy at the end, like a big 3-book trilogy at the end to kind of capstone the whole thing. And she looks at me and I still remember the look on her face, and I can see now how hard it was for her to keep from laughing. Because there was just no way that I was going to sell a 20-book series to some editor. She knew it. That was just impossible. And because I was too dumb to know it was impossible, I did it. There's been an awful lot of just really of me, failing forward. And that was one of the things where I failed forward. But yeah, that was when I planned it out. And it was just like a sketch for each book, and then sort of maybe a paragraph on each of the big books at the end, and coming up with the curse words and so on for the series, so that I would have titles for the last 3 books. But yeah, that was basically that was the plan. It was from Chapter 2 of Stormfront, which I wrote in '96. Yeah. Blue Beetle. If I was going to write a short story about the Blue Beetle, I would probably write something about the day Harry got it, and it involving itself in complete havoc with whatever it was he was doing that day. And basically just being the shabby little hero car, because shabby little hero car is awesome. And I watched the Herbie movies way too much when I was young. guys remember that when they first started having movie channels, and they had the Disney Channel was one of the first movie channels you could pay for, and there was just basically there was nothing but Herbie movies on it, as far as I could tell, and 1 or 2 cartoons, because they didn't want to do the cartoons. They wanted to save those for the DVD or the VHS audience. So it was basically like Herbie movies and you know, Toby and the Circus and Son of Flubber and stuff like that.
Hi. I am
here.
Yes, I'm over here.
Yeah.
I'm the short guy over here.
Right.
Yes. I'm an editor, and I mention this because I tend to look at books very critically, look under the hood and such. In fact, your series nearly beat out the series I actually did my thesis on. So you were beat out by J.K. Rowling, I'm sorry.
Oh, that's okay.
When I was reading through Changes, I was noticing that in certain areas, the style was much more reminiscent of some of the earlier novels. And that made me think that quite a few of the chunks had been written earlier on. I was wondering if that was true.
No.
Okay.
No, I don't have anything written from ahead.
Was it just planned out, Dealey? Because the reason I ask is just because it really did feel like from Deadbeat era, some of those chapters.
Yeah, well, they were chapters that I've had in mind for a long time. Okay. So, you know, as I was getting to go through Changes, I felt like the guy who spent 6 months building the model city of Tokyo, and then he finally gets to strap on the kaiju suit and start smashing. And that's what Changes was to me, was me strapping on the kaiju suit and going, now I get to destroy all this stuff. Oh, I remember when I established this. I remember when we first visited here. And that was probably why. But yeah, I mean, that was kind of end of an era type stuff, writing type stuff, and you know, symbolically blowing up every part of his life. It's just like playing the explodophone in the background. It was awesome.
Okay.
Hi, my name's Nixie, and I wanted to say 2 things. 1, fuck yeah, Marvel. 2, do you have any advice for my first time publishing? It's a novel, not a short story.
And that's the whole question? Do I have any advice for publishing your first novel?
Yeah.
Yeah, and this is the best advice anybody ever gave me. After you get done writing your first novel, start writing your second novel. Don't hang around and just keep rewriting and rewriting and rewriting. I wrote my first fantasy book like 3 times. And what I found out was that when I rewrote my first fantasy book, I still had all the baked-in awful from the first time. I just dressed it up a little bit nicer, and then the third time I rewrote it, I just kind of sprinkled some cologne on it. But I mean, it wasn't. It was a story that was hampered because I had put it together when I knew nothing about writing stories. And as I kept writing and learned, I learned better and better how to get the story, you know, the ground floor of it right. And that's important. So when you get done with your first novel, get to work on the next novel. It's not about it's not about the books you've written. It's always about the book you're on right now. You've got to focus on that. As long as you keep doing that, eventually the book you're on right now will be the book that becomes the first book you sell. Other than that, stay on it. I still kind of say go with the traditional publisher when you can. There's a lot of predators out there in the self-publishing world. And it's real easy to get snapped up by one of those guys, especially because I know how badly you want to get in. I did it. It took me 10 years to break in. So keep going. Eventually, you will be a better writer than all the other newbies in the field. It's one of those situations of where you don't have to outrun the bear. You just have to outrun the guy right next to you. And eventually, you'll break in. But it's an endurance contest. It's a marathon. You have to stick with it, and whatever you need to do to convince yourselves to stick with it. My writing area was like surrounded by these World War II style propaganda posters of "keep writing," basically, you know, and eventually it happened. But for 10 years, I went home to, you know, I would go home to Christmas with the family and have, you know, one of my cousins come up and ask me, so, you know, when are you going to get a real job? And that was crushing to get that year after year. I mean, that was hard. I dreaded that every year, and he loved delivering it every year. And now I can say, I think I won't. I mean, it's different now, but man, it's hard when you're getting going, and that's just one of the things you have to overcome. When you eventually do get published, though, it's like you feel totally awesome. It's like, I can do anything. It's like, give me that guitar, I will teach myself to play. And now I play a little guitar, It's like, I feel like I can do anything. If I could break into the publishing industry, I can obviously, I'm stubborn enough to do anything. So it's kind of what I feel like now.
Well, on that note, I think we have to end. We are out of time. It's very sad, I know.
Don't worry, I will be back in the future for future Dragon Cons. This is my favorite con. Thank you very much, everybody.
Okay, let's give Jim a big hand and thank you for being here. You've been a great audience too. Thank you.